Hello everyone, my name is Abigail Fox and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a community that is very near and dear to my heart, Grace Community Church. Grace is a church community made up of 3 different locations. We are one church and 3 campuses. Fremont, which is our first and main campus, Grace Point, which is up in Northwood, Ohio by the lake, and Tiffin, which is actually in my hometown. The campus I will be focusing on for my capstone is the Tiffin campus. The vision of Grace is to help those who attend to discover who Jesus is, have the opportunity to decide to begin a relationship with Him, demonstrate what living for Him means, and deploy that good news to those around them. Where it began for me is in 2017. I lost my mother in the winter of 2017, and my neighbors invited myself along with my family to Grace one Sunday. Since then, I've come to know the Lord, was baptized on October of 2017, which was my senior year of high school. And I've made Grace Community Church my church home. Grace has and continues to be a large part of myself and my family's lives. So now that you know how I came to Grace, let's get into how the Tiffin campus came to be. The idea of a campus in Tiffin began quite a while ago, but it wasn't until 2018 that Grace actually bought a building in Tiffin. That building used to be a shop for a local company called Irving Equipment LLC. This shop worked on and built large crane trucks, and this is actually a truck that was being built in what is now our auditorium in our Tiffin campus. It took about a year before it was ready to open as a church, but in September of 2018 it was finished and ready to allow the people of Tiffin to gather. From that Sunday on, we knew we would need more space in the near future. After the first Sunday, we needed to move from 1 service to 2 because we were pulling every chair in the building so there was enough seating in the auditorium and there were still people standing. Currently, all 3 campuses are doing a campaign called Everyone on 3. What this means is that each of the campuses have a building renovation that they are seeking to have completed in the next 3 years and are currently raising money to fund them. Tiffin's goal in the next 3 years is to add on to the Grace Kids classrooms, build a large indoor playground that can be used and shared by the surrounding community to allow the building to be used all week long, and pave the current gravel parking lot. Grace really wants to put an emphasis on the building being used all week long because it's a space for community all the time, not just on the weekend. So where I come in the midst of all of that is what I'll get into now. I teamed up with Pastor Zach to help him visualize what Grace Community Church Tiffin could look like when all of these renovations are done in the next 10 years. All of these renovations will be done in phases. Phase 1, like I mentioned earlier, will be adding on to the existing Grace Kids classrooms, build a large indoor playground to be shared with the surrounding community, and pave the current gravel parking lot. Phase 2 is building a new 800-seat auditorium to ensure everyone has a seat and plenty of room for expansion as the campus continues to grow. With this addition comes a new main entrance and atrium space, as well as new offices. Phase 3 will be a large adult classroom building. This will be a multifunction space that can be used as one big room for large gatherings or split into 4 smaller rooms to be used for adult classes. Finally, Phase 4 will be transforming the old auditorium and atrium into a space that can be used for our Fuse youth group to gather. When I began the process of figuring out what the spaces could look like, I started to gather information from a few different areas. I toured a couple churches in the Columbus area, as well as talked to some of the people that had a part in designing those buildings. Along with this, I reached out to the project coordinator of Watermark Church in Dallas, and he provided a lot of great insight as I began to unpack what creating these phases could look like for Tiffin. The reason I interviewed him was to gain inspiration from their building in Dallas, because Zach really wanted to emulate the design of their building in Tiffin. Then I began to create mood boards for each of the spaces in Tiffin and began meeting with Zach to understand his vision for the new additions. The main buildings I gained inspiration from were Watermark Community Church in Dallas, Life Point and Lewis Center here in Columbus, and Rock City Church right down the road in Hilliard. I learned a lot from each of these tours. At Life Point, I learned that you can use lobbies like hallways. This really encourages fellowship and allows for people to gather and chat if they want, instead of just passing through a space to get to the next. I also learned about a riser system that you can put into the auditorium in order to put more chairs in a smaller space. Finally, I learned that you can never have enough storage space, and this was a pattern that I found repeated on all of my tours and interviews. At Rock City, I walked through their buildings and saw what a cohesive color scheme through their whole building looks like. Their building is black, white, and grays aside from the kids' spaces. I also learned that it's necessary to put extra wide hallways, especially in the children's areas, so parents can walk through with strollers and baby carriers without it feeling congested or backing up the flow of traffic. One thing I really appreciated that both of these churches did is they had their children's spaces color-coded according to age range. From those experiences, I began to create mood boards for each of the spaces I was designing to get an idea for what they would look and feel like. This is a mood board that I created for the overall design of the whole building. I wanted all of the spaces to have a cohesive industrial feel to them. I also wanted the spaces to feel natural and flow together, as well as embracing the large open nature of the building. Along with those, I wanted to give plenty of space for a community to gather and enjoy time together. Finally, I wanted every space in the building to feel welcoming, to encourage everyone from church members to people just checking it out to feel welcome and happy to be there. With all that being said, let's get into the design of it all. This is a master plan for the current property. Currently, there is a lot of land that can still be developed, which is really helpful when we're seeking to expand our building. Here is the current floor plan. As you can see, there is a welcome desk, kids check-in, coffee area, kids classroom, and an auditorium. From this, I created circulation studies to help me get an idea of how the current spaces are being used and traveled in. This is an example of a new visitor moving through the space. This is an example of a regular attendee moving through the space. The building being used throughout the work on an average workday. And finally, how the space will be used by someone serving Sunday morning. After all of these phases are done, the campus will look much different. It will have more room for growth, the ability to be used all week for various activities, and utilize the land that was donated by members for a parking lot, as you see at the bottom. In this map, you can see how the current floor plan in yellow compares to the final building in the next 10 years. Once again, I created circulation studies of the new spaces to get an understanding of how each of the new spaces will be used. This is how a new visitor may use the new building. A regular attendee. How the building will be used during the week. And finally, by those serving on Sunday mornings. Like I said earlier, the building of these additions will be in phases. Phase 1 being the new Grace Kids areas. These spaces will include more classrooms for ages infant through 5th grade. The new classrooms will allow for kids to spread out according to their age or grade. It will give them space to play while also allowing parents to supervise to ensure the safety of their children. Now that you understand what these spaces will be used for, let's see what they will actually look like. This will be what the new kids' entrance will look like. This is currently the main entrance to the atrium, but will be changed to become our kids' entrance. Parents will be able to bring their kids in here without worrying about walking to the other side of the busy building on a Sunday morning. The first room I want to show you is the nursery. It's actually the current nursery and crawlers room. With this new plan, we will break up those ages into 2 separate rooms. In the nursery, I wanted to provide a lot of spaces for volunteers to sit with the babies and plenty of cribs to put them down for a nap. Along with this come lots of storage space as needed, as well as an area to change diapers and wash hands without needing to leave the room. From the nursery, the crawlers room can be accessed, as well as from the hallway leading back to the other classrooms. Going into this room, we still have plenty of rocking chairs for volunteers to sit with the kids, as well as cribs to put them to sleep in. I wanted to take advantage of the larger footprint of this room and give lots of space for the little ones to be able to crawl and move around as they would want. Finally, we get into one of the Grace Kids classrooms. This is the oldest of the age groups. For the sake of times, I will only show you the 4th and 5th grade room, but all of the 1st through 5th grade rooms are very similar. In Fremont at Grace's main campus, we have a space for our 4th and 5th graders called 45th Street, and I really wanted to carry that over to Tiffin and give them a fun environment to learn in. This classroom has plenty of tables for the kids to sit for lessons and also allows for their favorite Sunday morning game of Foursquare. Along with this, there are custom cubbies for coats and storage for anything that they may need. The final destination for the Grace Kids area is the indoor playground. Grace really wants this space to be used all week long. It will be open to the public as well as those who call Grace home, and it will provide a great opportunity to reach the community of Tiffin. We really wanted to embrace our location of the building, of being next to our local airport, by theming our Grace Kids spaces the hangar. This playground will have plenty of seatings for parents to sit and work while watching their kids. This is a view of the playground area that can be easily seen by parents while they work to ensure the safety of their kids. Moving on to Phase 2, it will include a brand new auditorium and atrium, so there is both room for those who call Grace home and guests. A new open atrium with a welcome desk and coffee area, and offices so Tiffin can have more local staff in the building. Currently, some of our staff works in both Fremont and Tiffin and commutes throughout the week. This office area will have a reception desk and copy room, as well as a small bookstore for church staff recommended books, and then also an open mezzanine space above all of those offices that can be used for anything from meeting, studying, or even just taking a break from work. So let's walk through these spaces together. As you enter the building, you'll be greeted by a new main entrance. This is where people will enter on both Sunday mornings and throughout the week. As we move inside, this is a view of what you'll see as you enter the atrium. Moving further into the atrium, the new Welcome Center will be centrally located in order for anyone to have easy access to it. As you can see, this addition will have plenty of room for people to gather and pass through without feeling claustrophobic. Moving past the Welcome Center, you'll see a coffee area where you can grab a cup of coffee before heading into the new auditorium for service. This new auditorium will fit 800 seats. This is 300 more than our current auditorium. Our campus is quickly running out of seats Sunday mornings on a regular basis, so we really need the extra room for the growth that God has allowed to happen in Tiffin. Going back out into the atrium area, I've placed as many seating and study areas as possible. These spots will be open for people to use throughout the week to study with others, meet with pastors and staff, or even just to have a staff lunch. My goal with adding in all of these sitting and study areas is to really encourage community and accountability within the church. Moving into the new office area, you will be met with this receptionist that works throughout the week. Behind the reception desk, you can see a small bookstore where staff recommended books can be purchased. Behind this wall is a copy room that can be used by the entire staff in Tiffin. This room has plenty of storage and houses 2 computers for easy access of files. Moving down the hallway, you will see large glass windows into each of the offices in order to easily see in and out of each room, as well as creating an open office feel while still providing individual spaces. Here's an example of the inside of what Pastor Zach's office could look like. There's room for people to come and meet with him, and plenty of seating for collaboration with Pastor AJ, Blaine, or any additional staff that is added to the team as time goes on. Above all of the offices is a mezzanine space. This will be a great space for studying, taking a break, eating lunch, and even temporary offices for interns. This space will also be open for members to use throughout the week. This helps with the goal of the building being used all week long. Phase 3 will add on 4 large adult classroom spaces that can be used for classes and various events. This space will be able to open up into one large room in order to accommodate for larger events that will take place with the growing community. This is an example of one of the 4 smaller classrooms closed off. And this is what the large room will look like once all of those 4 classrooms are opened up. The final phase, which is phase 4, is the youth center. Tiffin currently does not have a designated youth space. They use the auditorium and atrium space that are also used on Sunday mornings. With this designated space, they will be able to meet on Sunday mornings as well as to attend regular service. They will have plenty of space to spread out for small groups and will be able to have meetings while other adult classes are taking place. This new youth center will give room for a Fuse youth group to grow while giving them a youth program and space that can be personalized to the students rather than using a large multi-purpose space. This is the current auditorium and what it will look like after it's transformed into the Fuse Youth Center. And this is also part of the current auditorium, which will be made into breakout areas to allow enough spaces for small groups to dig into what was being taught. This is our current atrium, which will be transformed into the main hangout area for the students to play games, talk, and engage in great community. In conclusion, with this project, I spent the last 10 weeks working alongside Pastor Zach to visualize what the future Tiffin campus for Grace Community Church could look like. This design will allow for future ease of expansion, functionality of current and new spaces, and room for continued growth. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all at Grace.